I'm Dr. Nathan Carter, a retired veterinarian and canine behaviorist with 32 years of experience working with dogs, some of the most misunderstood creatures on this planet. I've treated everything from working canines injured in the line of duty to sheltered dogs so traumatized they'd forgotten how to trust. In my career, I've learned one unshakable truth. A dog's behavior isn't the problem. It's the story they're trying to tell. And no dog told a story quite like Titan, a German Shepherd labeled unadoptable by a rural shelter in upstate New York. For 8 months, he was a snarling fortress of fear, untouchable by even the most seasoned handlers. That is, until a little girl named Sophie walked into his life and changed everything. This isn't just a story of rescue. It's a testament to the healing power of patience, the courage of a child, and the resilience of a dog who'd never been given a chance to be anything but broken. It all started in the fall of 2024 at Pinewood Animal Rescue, a small shelter nestled in the rolling hills of upstate New York. Titan was a German Shepherd who'd become more of a cautionary tale than a resident. Volunteers whispered about him. Staff posted signs on his kennel, "Do not approach," and even experienced handlers kept their distance. He didn't bark for attention or wag his tail like the other dogs hoping for a home. Titan growled, lunged, and bared his teeth at anyone who came near, especially men. His kennel was his fortress, a place of snarls and silence, where he'd retreat to the farthest corner. His massive frame curled tight, as if trying to disappear. His coat was patchy, his ribs visible, his eyes dark and hollow. A dog who'd clearly been through hell. Titan had been found 8 months earlier, chained to a rusted fence on an abandoned farm, half-starved and covered in scars. The consensus was that he'd been trained as a guard dog by someone cruel, possibly used for intimidation or worse. No one knew his full story, only that he hated people and didn't want to be saved. The shelter staff had tried everything: behaviorists, medication, desensitization protocols. But Titan remained a wall of aggression, deemed unadoptable. Most believed he'd spend his life in that kennel, a lost cause. That is, until Dr. Emily Hayes walked through the shelter doors with her 9-year-old daughter, Sophie, by her side. Emily wasn't looking for a pet. She was a child psychologist specializing in trauma, visiting the shelter to volunteer as part of a community outreach program. But as she passed Titan's kennel, something made her stop. Titan was curled in his corner, his body rigid, but his eyes locked onto her with an intensity that wasn't rage or threat. It was fear, raw and unguarded. "What's his story?" Emily asked, keeping her voice low. The shelter manager, a weary but kind woman named Karen, sighed. "Found him on a deserted farm, chained up, no food, no shelter. He's never bitten anyone, but he's come close, especially with men." As if on cue, a male volunteer walked by, and Titan sprang to his feet, hurling himself at the bars with a guttural snarl. Karen flinched, and the volunteer hurried away. "We've tried everything," Karen added. "He doesn't let anyone in." But Emily saw something in that moment. A dog who'd learned that people meant danger. A dog who'd built walls so high that even kindness couldn't breach them. As a behaviorist, I can tell you this isn't uncommon in dogs with traumatic pasts. Aggression isn't their nature, it's their shield, a survival mechanism etched into their psyche by pain. Titan wasn't a monster. He was a survivor, and Emily recognized that. "Can we sit here for a while?" she asked, motioning to the floor a safe distance from the kennel. Karen hesitated, but nodded. "He won't come near you." "That's okay," Emily replied. "I'm not here to ask anything of him." Emily sat cross-legged on the floor, pulling a book from her bag. Sophie, a quiet girl with wide, curious eyes, crouched beside her, utterly focused on Titan. "He's not angry," Sophie whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "He's scared. He's trying to protect himself." Karen raised an eyebrow. "Smart kid." Emily smiled, brushing a hand through Sophie's auburn curls. "She wants to work with animals one day. She came to learn, not just to help." Emily began reading softly, not to Titan, but in his presence, her voice a gentle hum in the quiet shelter. Sophie watched Titan intently, her small hands clutching her sketchbook, already drawing him in her mind. 2 days later, back at their cozy farmhouse, Sophie sat on the front porch, her sketchbook open on her lap. She'd drawn Titan, not growling, but lying beneath a maple tree, eyes half closed, peaceful. I think he could be different. Mom, she said softly, not looking up. If someone gave him a real chance, Emily sat beside her, the crisp fall air rustling the leaves around them. Sweetheart, that kind of healing takes time. It's not easy. Sophie glanced up, her green eyes steady. You always say the hard things are worth doing. Maybe he's waiting for someone like us. Those words lingered with Emily, echoing long after Sophie went inside. That night, Emily reviewed Titan's file again. Not as a psychologist assessing risk, but as a mother, hearing her daughter's quiet conviction. The next morning, she submitted an adoption application. The shelter board meeting was tense. He's dangerous, said Dr. Larson, the head vet. Unpredictable. We've seen no consistent improvement. He belongs in a sanctuary, not a home, especially not one with a child. Emily kept her voice calm. He's not aggressive by nature. He's afraid. His behavior is rooted in trauma, not malice. What he needs is trust, routine, and a safe environment. Another board member chimed in. You're a single parent. What makes you think you can handle this? Emily didn't waver. I work from home. I have experience with trauma recovery. And Sophie isn't a typical 9-year-old. She's careful. She listens. And she's the one who suggested we bring Titan home. She sat outside his kennel and didn't flinch. He didn't growl at her. That's rare. Karen, who'd observed their visits, nodded. She's right. That girl saw something in Titan most adults missed. After a heated debate, the board voted 5-4 in favor. Emily's application was approved, with strict conditions, weekly updates, behaviorist sessions, and an immediate return if anything went wrong. Getting Titan home was a challenge. He refused to enter a crate, growling and backing away when anyone approached. Emily didn't force him. With Karen's help, they set up a partition in the back of Emily's SUV, giving Titan space to enter on his own terms. It took 45 minutes of patience, coaxing with soft words, no sudden movements, but he finally climbed in. Sophie had come along, sitting quietly on the grass nearby, watching with those steady eyes. As Titan settled into the vehicle, their gazes met. Through the window, Sophie pressed her small hand to the glass, not waving, but connecting, silently promising, "We'll help you heal." The ride home was tense, Titan panting heavily, his body coiled tight. Sophie sat in the front seat, holding her sketchbook. That day's drawing showed Titan lying beneath a tree, a girl reading beside him. A vision of the future she hoped for. Their farmhouse was ready for Titan, a quiet space with a doorless crate, soft bedding, and no sharp sounds or fragile objects. Everything designed for safety and healing. Emily laid a training lead on the ground, stepping back to give Titan space. He emerged slowly, nose low, tail down, following the lead inside, but keeping his distance. Sophie peeked around the hallway, her voice barely a whisper. Is this his forever spot? Emily nodded. If he wants it to be. Titan stood still, watching them both. He didn't bark, didn't growl, but he had come inside, and Sophie believed, truly believed, that he was ready to begin again. The first week was a test of patience. Titan wouldn't eat unless Emily and Sophie left the room. He barely moved from his corner, flinching at every sound. The creak of the floor, the rustle of leaves outside, but he no longer growled, and he never tried to flee. Each morning, Sophie placed a fresh bowl of food near his crate, leaving a small drawing beside it. A sun, a heart, a dog with gentle eyes. So he knows he's not alone. She told Emily with quiet determination, I've seen this in my work with traumatized dogs. Small, consistent acts of kindness can chip away at fear, creating a bridge between survival and trust. Sophie instinctively understood this. Even at 9 years old, by week 2, Titan began eating while they were in the room. As long as they stayed a safe distance away, he slept more deeply, no longer keeping one eye half open. The tight coil of anxiety that had defined him started to loosen. Then came a moment that shifted everything. One evening, Emily was reading aloud in the living room, Sophie upstairs doing homework. Titan stood suddenly, pacing in wide, anxious circles, a sign of restlessness, discomfort, or need. When he moved toward the back door, Emily rose slowly and reached for the handle. Titan lunged, his growl deep and sharp, body tense, mouth open. Emily froze. But he didn't bite. Instead, he rushed past her into the yard, circled once, and squatted. She understood. He hadn't known how to ask, and her sudden movement had scared him. But he'd chosen control over aggression. That night, Sophie helped hang a little bell on a ribbon by the door. "We'll teach him how to ask," she said, her voice full of hope. Emily smiled, brushing her daughter's shoulder, "and we'll learn how to listen." From a behavioral standpoint, this was a breakthrough. Titan wasn't just reacting, he was communicating, showing the first signs of trust in a world he'd only known as dangerous. It was a small victory, but in canine rehabilitation, the smallest steps often mean the most. One crisp November afternoon, progress took a new form. Sophie was coloring on the living room floor, humming softly. While Emily prepared dinner in the kitchen, outside, a delivery truck rumbled up the gravel driveway, its engine loud and jarring. Before they could react, there was a sharp knock at the door, followed by the rattle of the handle. Titan launched from his corner like a bullet, not retreating, but charging forward. Planting himself between Sophie and the door, his body was rigid, head low, hackles raised, and his growl was deep, guttural, protective. The kind that sends chills down your spine. Emily placed a hand on Sophie's shoulder, guiding her behind her, and spoke calmly toward the door. "Please leave the package on the porch. We'll get it later." Through the window, she saw the delivery man set the box down and retreat quickly. Titan remained in position, watching the door even after the truck drove away. Only when the silence returned did he lower his body, ears still alert, chest heaving. "Thank you," Emily said softly, not daring to touch him. "You were protecting us, weren't you?" Sophie knelt a safe distance away, her voice a whisper. He didn't just get scared, he stood his ground. Emily met her eyes. "That's trust. Sophie, it's not perfect yet, but it's beginning." That night, Titan didn't return to his corner. Instead, he lay by the front door, a quiet guardian who'd decided they were his to protect. In my experience, this shift from fear-driven aggression to protective instinct is a pivotal moment in a dog's recovery. Titan was starting to see Emily and Sophie not as threats, but as his pack. Winter brought new challenges and new triumphs. A snowstorm swept through the valley, downing power lines and plunging the house into a cold darkness. Emily lit a fire in the living room, while Sophie gathered blankets and cushions, building a cozy nest near the fireplace. Titan paced nervously at first, unsettled by the flickering light and the change in routine. "We'll be okay, buddy," Emily said softly. Sophie set down her sketchbook, a new drawing of the three of them huddled by the fire. "He can sleep close to us," she whispered, "if he wants to." Titan didn't approach at first, settling in his usual spot just out of reach. But around 2 a.m., Emily stirred to find him curled beside Sophie, not touching, but near enough for warmth to pass between them. She didn't move, didn't speak, just added another log to the fire and whispered, "Good night, brave boy." The storm marked a turning point. Titan began following Emily from room to room, still cautious, but closer than before. He brushed past her leg in the hallway, paused longer beside Sophie's chair. One evening, as Emily worked at her desk, Titan approached. He sat beside her quietly, then leaned just slightly until his head rested against her knee. Emily froze, then slowly moved her hand an inch, resting it on his head. Titan stayed, and in that moment, the distance between fear and trust vanished. I've seen this in countless rehabilitation cases. Touch, when offered on a dog's terms, is a profound act of connection. Titan wasn't just healing, he was choosing to let Emily in. But Titan's journey wasn't just about healing at home. It extended into the world beyond the farmhouse. One snowy morning, Emily took Titan for a walk along a nearby trail, letting him off leash for a few minutes, a freedom he'd earned through months of progress. Suddenly, Titan stopped, ears perked, nose in the air, and bolted into the trees. Titan, Emily called, her heart racing as she crashed through the underbrush, her boots sinking in snow. She found him standing over a figure, half buried in white. A teenage boy, maybe 16, barely conscious, shivering uncontrollably. His snowboarding gear was soaked, his ankle twisted at an unnatural angle, a backpack nearby half covered in snow. He'd likely been there for hours, caught in a sudden blizzard while trying to reach the main road. Emily knelt beside him, checking his pulse, weak but steady, his breathing shallow. Titan didn't retreat or bark. He stayed beside the boy, occasionally nudging his arm with his nose, as if checking on him. Emily called 911, giving their location. I've got a male, mid-teens, unresponsive, early hypothermia, possible ankle fracture. As they waited, Emily wrapped her scarf around the boy's neck, her hands trembling from the cold. She looked at Titan, her voice a whisper. You didn't run from him. You stayed. When the rescue team, all men, arrived, Titan tensed, his body stiffening, but he didn't lunge. A low growl escaped him, quickly silenced by Emily's calm presence. It's okay, she told him. They're here to help. Titan stood firm by her side, breathing hard, but steady. The boy, later identified as 16-year-old Ethan Carter, no relation to me, was airlifted to a hospital in Albany, where he made a full recovery. His parents credited Titan with saving his life, calling him a miracle dog in a tearful interview with the local news. For Titan, this moment was more than a rescue. It was proof of his transformation. He'd gone from a dog who saw all men as threats to one who could stand his ground and protect a stranger, even in the face of fear. From a behavioral perspective, this is a hallmark of deep healing. Titan wasn't just surviving anymore, he was thriving. His instincts realigned from self-preservation to guardianship. Spring arrived with a letter from Pinewood Animal Rescue. The shelter board officially ended their monitoring period, citing Titan's remarkable progress as a model for future rehabilitation efforts. Attached was an invitation. Would Emily and Titan return to the shelter to speak with prospective adopters? Emily agreed, and Sophie came along, holding Titan's leash confidently as they walked through the familiar gates. The staff couldn't believe their eyes. They remembered the snarling, untouchable creature who'd once shaken in his kennel. Now, Titan moved calmly beside the girl he trusted most, his head near her hand, his eyes soft and steady. Inside the education room, a dozen people sat in a semicircle, some hoping to adopt, others simply curious. Emily stood at the front, Titan resting at her feet. I'm not a dog trainer, she began. I'm a child psychologist. But what I've learned about trauma in humans, I applied to Titan. He didn't need force, dominance, or quick fixes. He needed safety, the chance to choose connection on his terms. She explained their method: no pressure, just presence, consistent routines, gentle exposure, and listening to Titan's signals. His aggression wasn't the problem. It was his solution. His armor, our job, was to give him reasons to lower it. Sophie raised her hand shyly, her voice small but clear. I used to think dogs just needed love, but they need understanding too. Titan didn't change because we made him. He changed because we waited. A couple in the back asked about a fearful shepherd mix they'd seen in the kennels. Do you think he has hope too? Emily smiled. Every dog has a story. If you're willing to listen, really listen, healing is always possible. That evening, back home, Emily sat by the fireplace, Sophie resting her head on her lap. Titan lay nearby, one paw stretched toward the warm light, his breathing steady and peaceful. On the wall above them hung a timeline, photos of Titan's journey, the first day he walked into the house, the night he rang the bell to go outside, the moment he leaned into Emily's hand. Tucked between the photos was a certificate. Sophie Hayes, junior animal care volunteer, recognizing her role in Titan's transformation. But Titan's story didn't end with his healing. It rippled outward, touching lives beyond the farmhouse. Inspired by her experience, Sophie started a blog called Paws of Patience, where she shared Titan's story and tips for helping scared dogs. The blog gained a small but dedicated following, with readers sending letters from across the country. One came from a teenager in Ohio. I was scared of dogs until I read about Titan. Now I volunteer at my local shelter. Thank you. Sophie. Another was from a veteran in Texas. Titan's story reminds me of my own PTSD. If he can heal, maybe I can too. Sophie read each letter aloud to Titan, who'd tilt his head as if he understood. The shelter began a new program, Titan's Trust Initiative, training volunteers to work with traumatized dogs using Emily and Sophie's methods. Pinewood Animal Rescue saw a 30% increase in adoptions over the next year, with many adopters citing Titan's story as their inspiration. Sophie, now 10, spoke at a local school event about animal empathy, bringing Titan along. The once untouchable dog sat calmly as kids approached, some hesitant, others eager to pet him. One boy, who'd been bitten by a dog years ago, reached out a trembling hand. Titan stayed still, his eyes soft, letting the boy touch his fur. "He's not scary," the boy whispered, a smile breaking through his fear. Back at home, Titan's transformation continued to unfold. On a warm spring morning, Sophie took him to the backyard, where a blooming apple tree cast dappled shadows on the grass. She sat cross-legged, reading aloud from her favorite book about a dog who saves a lost hiker. Titan lay beside her, not just near, but close, his head resting on her knee, his body relaxed in a way it had never been before. Emily watched from the porch, her heart full. "You didn't need to be fixed," she whispered to Titan. "You just needed to be seen." For Sophie, Titan wasn't just a rescued soul. He was a teacher, showing her the power of patience and the strength it takes to understand another's fear. She kept drawing, her sketchbook now filled with images of Titan under trees, in snowstorms, beside hikers, a gallery of his journey from fortress to family. And for me, as a behaviorist reflecting on this story, Titan is a reminder of what dogs can teach us. That healing isn't about breaking down walls, but about building bridges. That trust isn't given, but earned. And that sometimes the smallest hands, like Sophie's, can hold the greatest power to change a life. Titan didn't just find a home, he found a purpose. And in doing so, he showed a little girl, a community, and the world what it means to truly see